Dharmasya Sarvadharmaswarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramaddanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishna Vande Jagadgurum. Good afternoon, everyone. My pranams to Revered Swami Medhanandaji Maharaj and to Chandikanandaji Maharaj, and my namaskars to all of you. I'm having a wonderful time here. We're beginning to celebrate Krishna Ashtami today, so I thought it would be appropriate to talk briefly today about Bhagavan Sri Krishna's practical guide to the three gunas. The three gunas. It's a very important topic. You'll find it mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita quite frequently, especially in chapters 14, 17, and 18. Now, we all know, of course, as good Vedantins, that the goal of life is God realization or self-realization, capital S, however you like to think of the goal, but liberation in any form. But what happens is, sometimes in spiritual life, when we set the ideal too high, it becomes impractical. That, of course, we have to set that as the ideal, but on a day-to-day basis, what should be the goal? Most of us are not going to realize God today, right? Let's be realistic. It would be great if we did, but almost certainly we won't. But what can we achieve today as spiritual aspirants? How can we make progress on a day-to-day basis? The answer is, based on the three gunas, we can try to be more sattvic. We can try to be a little bit more sattvic in our interactions with others, in our behavior, in our spiritual practices, and so on. That's a kind of measurable progress that you can literally quantify. Okay, so I want to talk about the three gunas because it's very, very practical and very important. You'll find that there are many texts in Hinduism that talk about the three gunas. Many of you have studied the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. You'll find Sri Ramakrishna talking about the gunas all the time, the three gunas. And Bhagavad Gita also mentions the gunas many, many times. And one of the most important things about these three gunas is that they're both a kind of theoretical framework and it's a kind of practical framework. It's a kind of merging of theory and praxis, okay, in a way that's very helpful to all of us as spiritual aspirants. The colophon, the end of each chapter of the Gita, when we recite it, there are two words to refer to the Gita: Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre. Brahma Vidya, because the Gita teaches us the science of Brahman. Yoga Shastra, because it's a practical spiritual manual. It gives us practical advice. And this theory of the three gunas in the Bhagavad Gita, in Sri Ramakrishna's teachings, they're both Brahma Vidya, they fall under Brahma Vidya, the science of Brahman, the science of spirituality, and also falls under Yoga Shastra, how we should live and behave on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so I want to tackle briefly a few things. First of all, what are the three gunas? How do they manifest in our behavior? What is the role of the three gunas in our spiritual life? And why is it important for us as sadhakas, as spiritual aspirants, to understand the workings of the three gunas? So, first of all, guna, what does it mean? How do we translate the term? We can leave it untranslated, but a rough translation would be energies, the three energies. Because just as in physics, E equals mc squared, right? Energy can manifest in different forms. So likewise, these three energies of Satwa, Rajas, and Tamas, they manifest in different ways in the human personality. So if we have a preponderance of Tamas, the tamasic energy, it'll manifest as laziness, procrastination, dullness, lethargy, feeling tired all the time. Depression is a common manifestation of tamas as well. Okay. Rajas, if you have a lot of rajas, how does that manifest? It manifests as hyperactivity, being very ambitious. I want to do this, I want to do that. Being full of worldly desires. Having strong emotional attachments to things, to people, to places. Okay? And Satwa. How does Satwa, the energy of Satwa, manifest? It manifests as calmness, equanimity, humility, compassion, bhakti, spirituality, devotion, and so on. A certain detachment as well. So, now, with this in the background, why is it so important to become sattvic? Sri Ramakrishna gives a wonderful story about three robbers to illustrate the three gunas. The three robbers correspond to the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And there's a wealthy man walking on the street, and these three robbers pounce on him, steal his money, and then this first robber, tamas, says, now that we have his money, let's kill him. Because what's the point? If we let him go, he might run to the police. Better to kill him. Tamas destroys. It destroys us. It's the worst of the three gunas from a spiritual standpoint. The second robber, Rajas, says, whoa, that's going too far. We don't need to do that. Let's just tie him up to this tree so he can't escape. Rajas binds. This energy of Rajas binds us to worldly existence. It makes us come back again and again. We're stuck in the cycle of transmigration. Okay. So they tie him to a tree. Then the robbers leave. The third robber feels pity for this poor gentleman. And secretly he comes back to this wealthy man, who's now no longer as wealthy, tied to the tree. And he gently unties him, gently picks him up by the arm, and says, come with me, sir. I'm so sorry that we did this to you. You have to go in that direction to get where you're going. And he points in that direction. And this gentleman is so touched. He says, you've been so kind to me. Why don't you come with me? And then this third robber, Satwa, says to him, where you're going, I cannot follow. I can only point you in the direction. It's a beautiful story illustrating the role of Satwa, the energy of Satwa in spiritual life. It will save us from tamas. It will cut all of our bondages in our attachments. And it will point us to the highest goal of liberation. But ultimately, we also have to transcend sattva. But the moment I say that, many people think, okay, then sattva is not important. This is a big mistake in spiritual life, skipping steps. Everybody wants to skip steps. They're in 5th grade, they want to skip the bachelor's and the master's and they want to go straight to the PhD. That's not the way it works. And the beauty of it is, if you become very sattvic, that sattva guna itself will point you toward liberation. You don't have to, so the priority should be, how do I make my life as sattvic as possible? Once you become sattvic, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, a sattvic mind becomes its own guru. Your mind becomes your guru. And then sattva will lead you toward the highest goal. You don't have to worry about it. So our priority as spiritual aspirants, don't think about becoming trigunatita, which is beyond all the three gunas and all that. No, be practical. Every single one of us has some mixture of rajas and tamas in us, as well as some sattva. We need to increase the ratio of sattva vis-a-vis rajas and tamas. That's a very, very practicable goal in our spiritual life. Okay. Now, why is understanding the workings of the three gunas important? For two main reasons. Number one, in spiritual life, it's very important to understand ourselves accurately and honestly. So this is what I call brutally honest self-assessment. We have to be brutally honest with ourselves in assessing our strengths and weaknesses. And this framework of the three gunas really helps us. Because it applies to all of our activities, all of our behavior. So what we can do is, we can pinpoint, we can go through our day. Waking up in the morning, then I do this, I have my breakfast, and then I interact with my whoever, and my family, and then I go to work, and then I do this, and then I do that, I do exercise. Every single one of those activities can be tamasic, it can be rajasic, it can be sattvic. And you'll find, every single one of us will find, in some ways, in some aspects of our life, we're highly sattvic. In other aspects, very rajasic. In other aspects, very tamasic. So this framework of the three gunas can help us to pinpoint where the shoe pinches. where we need to make improvements in our spiritual life, and where we're strong, both, right? We have both strengths and weaknesses. This framework of the three gunas really helps us. And then secondly, if we understand this framework of the three gunas really well, we read the Gita carefully, the teachings of great saints like Sri Ramakrishna, then we'll also know what precise steps we can take to become more sattvic. Because we can literally classify different kinds of behavior. Oh, I'm being rajasic now, or I'm being tamasic now. So you can try to be more and more sattvic. In the Bhagavad Gita, you'll find in chapter 17 and 18, Bhagavan Krishna classifies many different kinds of activities and behaviors in terms of the three gunas. And I can't go through all of them, but I'll just mention some of them. Faith, Shraddha. You might think Shraddha is sattvic by nature. It's a spiritual thing, but that can also be rajasic and tamasic, actually, depending on the nature of that faith. Same thing goes with food. Different kinds of people like different kinds of food, according to Bhagavan Krishna. We can talk about that if we have time. 3 kinds of sacrifice. There's tamasic sacrifice, rajasic sacrifice, and sattvic sacrifice. Yajna. Austerities, tapas. Austerity itself can be sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Charity, you might think again, charity is a wonderful thing. Isn't it inherently sattvic? No, it can also be rajasic. It can also be tamasic. And we'll see how it can be. And it goes on like that. Bhagavan Krishna explains many different kinds of behavior based on the three gunas. So we're going to talk about a few of them. It will not be exhaustive. We don't have enough time. But another fun thing and important thing about this framework of the three gunas is that it's not fixed. It's not static. It's kind of expandable and it's adaptable, right? The Bhagavad Gita was composed many thousands of years ago. It's 2025. How do we use this framework of the three gunas and apply it to modern life now for each of us? How do we use it to address modern contemporary challenges? And we'll see how we can do that also. So let's just go through some examples. Sri Ramakrishna and Bhagavad Gita talk about 3 different ways that you can engage in spiritual practice, in sadhana. Okay, so what does a tamasic spiritual aspirant look like? This is somebody who, so many of you are initiated. You've had the blessing of getting initiation in our tradition. And the guru will typically tell you to sit in the morning and evening and do some mantra japa and other things. But you can do that mantra japa in a tamasic manner, in a rajasic manner, and in a sattvic manner. Doing it in a tamasic manner means what? You wake up early in the morning, you get up, you go into the shrine, and you start doing japa, and then you fall asleep. And your head keeps dozing. That's tamasic spiritual practice. Another thing that's tamasic would be you're repeating the mantra, you're not falling asleep, but it's totally mechanical. You're repeating the mantra, but your mind is going in 100 different places. And it's mechanical. Okay. There's no feeling behind it. There's no vyakulata. That's Sri Ramakrishna's word for this inner longing for the divine. That feeling is not there. That's tamasic. Rajasic is if you're very distracted during the japa. Your mind is going here and there. You're not able to focus on your mantra and on the Ishta Devata in your heart. And Satwa, if you're sattvic in your spiritual practice, then your mind is fully concentrated on your Ishta Devata and on the mantra. And it's not just being repeated mechanically, but there's a genuine feeling. There's a genuine feeling for God. That's why Sri Ramakrishna would often say you should pray to God with tears in your eyes, because tears are a mark of sincerity and feeling, genuine feeling. That's sattvic. Okay? Another thing that Sri Ramakrishna pointed out is that a very sattvic spiritual aspirant has absolutely no desire to show off in him or her. See, because you might think that worldly ego is bad, but one of the worst forms of ego is spiritual ego. There are people who are so-called spiritual people, but who are highly egoistic. They're always bragging about how spiritual they are. It's kind of paradoxical, right? Because if you're bragging about how spiritual you are, that means you're not very spiritual. So he says the sattvic spiritual aspirant is somebody who does their spiritual practices in solitude, away from the attention of other people. They have absolutely no desire for recognition. It's between them and God. Rajasic people do their spiritual practices in more of a showy manner. In the back of their mind is some desire to show off, to get praise. This can even happen in a monastic order because there's so many monks, and if you're just joining, if you sit longer for meditation, then you know that the senior swamis are going to start praising you. Oh, that brahmachari is very good. He can sit for 2 hours. It's dangerous. Mahamaya can catch you, even in a monastic order. It's very dangerous. Okay, so that's spiritual practice. But another very, very important area for where the framework of three gunas is very important are relationships. We have so many different kinds of relationships. If you're a parent and you have children, you have a spouse or a partner, you have to interact with your coworkers. You might be a manager in a company, then you have people working under you. You have friends, so on. So many things, right? Now, use this framework of the three gunas to analyze each one of your relationships. This is very powerful. I can only give you a couple examples. So, take your relationship with your spouse or your partner. Okay, a very tamasic relationship is one in which you neglect each other. And it's just very bad. You don't really love each other, and you neglect each other, and you're always bickering with each other, and this and that. Rajasic relationship with your partner is one with it's what's called unhealthy codependence. You have strong emotional attachments for each other. And because of that, if you're left alone without your partner, you get restless, you become unhappy, you can't live without the other person. That's more rajasic. And in American English we say drama queen. So rajasic people are drama queens. They love drama. It's like they feel like they're most alive in the emotional highs and lows with their partner. I hate you, why don't you love me? I love you, I hate you, I love you. And it's like a seesaw, Every day is an adventure for these rajasic people. And sattvic people, in a sattvic relationship, there's a love, but this love is based on detachment. It's a detached love. It's a calm love. It's a spiritual love. Instead of being face-to-face in this kind of claustrophobic situation where it's just the two of you, you're side by side. You're helping each other on a spiritual path. That's more sattvic. Detached, but loving at the same time. You support each other. And both of you are spiritual partners. Now with kids, when you're raising your children, you can raise them in a tamasic way. What does that look like? Negligent parenting. Do whatever you want, I don't care. That's tamasic parenting. Rajasic parenting, exactly the opposite. Micromanaging. It's what's called helicopter parenting. You hover over your child. You don't let your child grow in his or her own way. That's rajasic parenting. And you kind of mold them in your own image. You don't let them be themselves. You don't let them flourish in their own unique way. And sattvic parenting, you understand that they are souls on their own spiritual journey. You don't own them. They're not even yours. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, don't make the mistake of thinking that anybody is your own. Keo karud noi in Bangla, he said. Nobody is anyone else's. Everybody is God's. We're all God's children. So are our children. Our own children are not ours. We're looking after them because God has entrusted them to us, and we are their stewards. And the best we can do as parents is to allow them to thrive by letting them realize their fullest potential. Realize their potential to their fullest. Okay. So the sattvika parent won't breathe down their necks. They'll let them grow in their own way. So we can apply this framework of the three gunas to relationships. At work, how do you relate to your co-workers, for instance? Are you very competitive and ambitious? Rajasic. If you're sattvic, and let's say you manage a company, or you're a CEO of a company, or you manage a team, something like that, a sattvic leader is a servant leader. Somebody who leads by serving. There's a humility there. Instead of leading with ego, right, and shouting at people and being domineering and bossy, no. The best kind of leader is actually the servant leader, a sattvic leader. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, he was a very astute psychologist. So he applied these three gunas to very subtle situations. So one day he went to visit Keshab Chandra Shen, one of his beloved householder devotees. And Keshab was quite ill. And Keshab told him to come at a certain time. Sri Ramakrishna came at exactly that time. He came to his house. And he's waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Keshab came about, I don't know, maybe 20, 30, 40 minutes later, after the appointment time. And then they talked. And then later, Sri Ramakrishna remarked, when somebody asked about his visit to Keshab, they said, "How was your visit?" And Sri Ramakrishna said, "I found Keshab to be very rajasic. I had to wait a long time before I could see him." It's a very subtle observation. You'll find that VVIPs, let's say you've got an appointment with like a CEO of a company, a vice chancellor of a university. If they're rajasic, what they might do is they'll say, "Come at 9 o'clock." So you come at 8:50. You want to make sure you're not late. You're sitting there. 9 o'clock rolls around, not there. 9:10, not there. 9:30, not there. 9:42, he walks in. No apology. And he feels good. He feels good that he's so important that he makes important people wait for him. This is rajasic. So a sattvic person will feel, wait a minute, when I give somebody a time, first of all, it's a matter of truthfulness. I'm not observing truthfulness, and I'm telling someone that I'm going to meet you at 9 o'clock and I come at 9:30. It's dishonest. And number two, the sattvic person will think, I have respect for you, and I respect your time. So if I give you a time and I don't come at that time, I'm disrespecting the other person. So that's another example. Now, with regard to food, Bhagavad Gita describes three kinds of food. Now, many people think that Bhagavan Krishna is explaining sattvic food, rajasic food, and tamasic food. That's not exactly what he does. What he does is he says that sattvika people are naturally drawn toward a certain kind of food. Rajasika people are drawn toward a different kind of food. Tamasic people are drawn toward another kind of food. Okay? And popularly that becomes sattvika food, rajasika food, and tamasic food. And I'll give you an example from the gospel again. Sri Ramakrishna says about Rakhal, his spiritual son. Rakhal has indigestion. It is best to take only sattvic food. Haven't you read about it in the Gita? Don't you read the Gita? Sri Ramakrishna is asking people in the room, don't you read the Gita? Because he knew that in the Gita, chapter 17, verses 8 to 10, Bhagavan Krishna explains different kinds of food. Now, I'm not going to go through the details, but the basic idea is that sattvic food is healthy, nourishing, tasty, but without having any really strong taste. Whereas rajasic food tends to be very sour or very spicy, very hot. There are some people who won't be satisfied until they start sweating from eating. There need to be at least a few beads of sweat coming out of their forehead in order to say, I really enjoyed this meal. And as if they're in pain. Oh. So very rajasic people. And tamasic people, they tend to like food that is stale, old, fermented. Alcohol is an example because it's fermented, right? Tamasic. Anybody who has addictions to cigarettes or things like that, that's more tamasic. So, again, brutally honest self-assessment. What are your dietary preferences? What kinds of food do you like? Do you like tamasic food or rajasic food or sattvic food? So try to make the food more sattvic. Now, it's easy to get carried away with food. And that's why Swamiji said, religion in Hinduism, observing Indians and Hindus in India at the time, he said, religion has moved into the kitchen. We don't want that. It's one factor among many others, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is renunciation of ego and thinking of God. So we should always remember Sri Ramakrishna's teaching. It's a startling teaching, but it's important to keep this in mind. Especially people who pride themselves on being very austere and vegetarians and this and that. Sri Ramakrishna says, blessed is the person who feels longing for God, though he eats pork. But shame on him whose mind dwells on lust and greed, though he eats the purest food, sattvic food, boiled vegetables, rice, and ghee. So you have to keep in mind that sattvic food is a means to the end of developing bhakti and renunciation and selflessness and a spirit of service and so on. But each person is different. Each individual will have to decide for themselves what to eat and how it helps them in their spiritual life. Now, with regard to charity, I'll give you an example with charity. Bhagavan Krishna in chapter 17 distinguishes sattvic giving from tamasic giving and rajasic giving. Sattvic giving is, I give to the person who is worthy of receiving what I'm giving, and I give the right thing. You have to be very careful about what you give. If there's a homeless person whom I know is an alcoholic, and they ask me for something, I can give them money, but most likely what are they going to use the money on? They're going to probably buy alcohol. So if they're hungry, better to give that alcoholic homeless person food. Cook them food or buy food from a restaurant and give them the food directly. Let them eat it in front of you. And then you know that they're benefiting from what you're giving them. So the sattvic person gives the right thing to the right person in the right way at the right time. Even the right time is important. Rajasic giving is, I give something to the homeless person, but it's not no strings attached. It's a quid pro quo. I expect something in return. What can a homeless person give me? I'm not expecting money from the homeless person, but I want gratitude. That homeless person better say thank you, do pranams. You're so great, you're so kind, you're so generous. Or if it's like a big kind of giving, let's say I'm a millionaire and I donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to some hospital to develop, construct a wing of a building. If I'm rajasic, what'll I do? I'll tell them, I'll give you this, but on one condition. I want a big plaque saying, this wing has been donated by Revered Swami Medhanandaji Maharaj. 24 karat gold, big letters so that everybody can see it from far away. That's rajasic. And tamasic giving is where you don't think about whom you're giving the thing to. You don't think properly about what you're giving to the person. You don't think about when to give. That's more tamasic. It's lazy. It's a kind of lazy giving. So even something as inherently spiritual as serving others can be classified in terms of sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. So keep that in mind. And 3 kinds of happiness. Bhagavan Krishna in chapter 18 distinguishes sattvika happiness from rajasic happiness from tamasic happiness. So we'll focus on sattvic and rajasic. Rajasic happiness. Any kind of instant gratification, any sense pleasure falls under this category. And what's the structure? It begins like nectar. It's wonderful. Everybody likes it. Then what happens eventually? It becomes like poison. And we're seeing that. Any parents here who are raising kids now in this age of social media and internet and this and that, there are a million problems now and challenges, right? And addictions, now behavioral addictions. Even if your kid is not addicted to drugs or alcohol or cigarettes by God's grace, they might still be addicted to Instagram or Facebook or any kind of just these pings on their phone, constantly looking at their phone. You know, we have a great book in our literature called The Eternal Companion. The Eternal Companion is supposed to be God. Now our smartphone has become our eternal companion. That's the problem in this age. So that's rajasic happiness. Sattvika happiness is the opposite. These are different forms of delayed gratification. It's a joy that comes from hard work. It's a joy that comes later, not from the beginning, typically. So the joy of spiritual practice is a good example of sattvika joy. But anything that you work hard at, training for a marathon, writing a dissertation, getting that job that you're looking for, getting into a good university, and so on. All these things require hard work, but it pays off in the end, and you're grateful for it. And there's a qualitatively different kind of joy that comes from delayed gratification. Why? Because sattvika happiness gratifies not the body-mind complex, but the deeper soul within. Atma buddhi prasadajam. Sattvika kinds of pleasure help to break our identification with the body-mind complex and help us to identify with the deeper soul within. So now, try to apply this to your daily life. Do it on your own. And try to apply it to 2025. What are the kinds of things you do? All of you, I'm sure, listen to music. We listened to some wonderful Sattvic music earlier. Thank you so much. Very Sattvic bhajans, right? Uplifting. They bring you into a spiritual mood. But other people, they like worldly music with worldly lyrics. What are worldly lyrics? 99% of the top Billboard top 10 songs are about, why did you break up with me? I love you. Why don't you love me? Oh, oh, oh. That could be the next number one hit right there. I just need him to put it to music, and then we got a hit on our hands. Right? Rajasic. That kind of music is Rajasic. Same thing. Everything can be classified in this way. What kind of people do you associate with? What are your friends like? Are they tamasic? Are they Rajasic? Are they Sattvic? Satsangatve nissangatvam. It's through satsanga that you develop spiritual qualities like detachment and devotion. So what kind of people are you associating with? You have to be careful about everything in spiritual life. Spiritual life is like walking on the edge of a razor's blade. Now, I don't want to come off as discouraging, and so we should always keep in mind that at the end of the day, every single one of us will attain liberation. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, everybody will be fed. Some people at 6 in the morning, others at 12, others at 6 p.m., others at midnight, but nobody will be left out. Everybody will go away with a full stomach. Isn't that nice? That means that's the doctrine of universal liberation. No eternal hell. None of us is doomed for eternal hell. None of us will transmigrate endlessly, thankfully. We'll all get liberation. Some people in this life. If you study these 3 gunas really carefully, this life. If you're a little more lazy about it, then it might take 5 lives. If you do really bad things like Hitler, it might take 1,000,000 lives. Lord knows what Hitler became after he left his body. But he'll be liberated too. But Hitler won't be Hitler when he's liberated. The soul of Hitler, after becoming sanctified, will become liberated. That's the beauty of it. Every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. We should always keep that in mind. So let us pray to Holy Mother Sharada Devi, to Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda and Bhagavan Sri Krishna, that we can grow daily in Satwa and cultivate Sattva guna and realize the highest goal of our life, God realization. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.